In April 1567, Mary travelled to Stirling to fetch her baby boy, but the keeper of Stirling Castle, the Earl of Mar, implored Mary not to take James back to Edinburgh with her. He knew that if Bothwell got his hands on Prince James, it would lead to civil war in Scotland. This really was a bold thing for Mar to say to the Queen, but Mary knew that he was right. And so they concocted a story about James having to isolate in Stirling while Mary had to drive to Stirling Castle to check if she was blind or not. Mary spent a few days with James at Stirling before returning to Edinburgh, but little did she know she would never see her son again. On the outskirts of Edinburgh, Mary was intercepted by Bothwell and his forces, who said the city was too dangerous for her to return to, and so he took her to the only place more middle class than Edinburgh, Dunbar. And it was at Dunbar where Bothwell sexually assaulted Mary. Before they could get married, Mary would have to pardon Bothwell for the sexual assault. Bothwell, he was cleared of a heinous sexual crime to protect his lands and title. He's lucky he was kicking about in the 16th century, because that sort of thing would have cost him 12 million quid nowadays. Mary stayed with Bothwell at Dunbar for 12 days, and many people have asked, why on earth would the Queen stay with a sexual deviant for 12 whole days? But the people in Love Island do it for a whole summer. Mary seems to have thought at this point that Bothwell really was the only one that could protect her. She was bereft of all of her vivacity and self-confidence. She was a shell of her former self. Meanwhile, Bothwell's enemies, who was literally everyone, were gathering in Stirling. They called themselves the Confederate Lords, and they vowed to rescue the Queen from Bothwell and to take revenge on Darnley's murderer. This is despite the fact that all of them were involved in Darnley's murder as well. It's like Rishi Sunak vowing to fix the economy that he fucking destroyed. And so Mary and Bothwell, they were married in a Protestant service at Holyrood in May 1567, and it really was a bleak affair. Mary, she wore black. The only guests in attendance were the four Marys and Bothwell's servants. There was no guests, there was no balls, there was no banquets, there was no dancing, there was no fun or frivolity. It really was the original COVID wedding.